Fall, Rachel.
I am. All right, so welcome to our virtual Justice on the Block Legal Informational Clinic. This clinic is a part of the virtual series Know Your Child's Education Rights. To help us learn more about how to prepare for your child's upcoming individual education plan meeting, we have Stephanie Johnson, Senior Attorney in the Tallahassee Office of Legal Services of North Florida, and Cheryl Sadler, Education Advocate with Legal Services of North Florida. Take it away, ladies.
Thanks, Rachel. Just a quick housekeeping note. This video provides legal information, should not be considered legal advice. This video does not create an attorney-client relationship or substitute legal advice you've been given. You may have defenses that we haven't discussed here, so seeking out an attorney or legal help is always advisable. So this is part 2 of our special education part 1 is on YouTube, and there we discussed what services are available for disabled students and what is a disabled student, all that. And now we wanted to do part 2 where we talk about an individual education plan. So Cheryl, what is an individual education plan?
Well, I think you just gave away the end there. An IEP stands for an individualized education plan, or sometimes it's an IEP program. The thing is, it's really 2 things. It's a process, which is a meeting or a series of meetings, and it's a document, which is the actual IEP. So the IEP ends up being a description of what special education means for a specific child. So parents should be involved at every step in creating the IEP. And by the way, parents under the special ed law, it's really broad. So it could be a foster parent, it could be a grandparent. It's not necessarily the biological parent.
Okay. So the IEP is the document, and I know you said it was a process, but also at the IEP meeting is when you're creating that document, correct?
Yes, it gets really confusing because we like to use the same word to mean different things. I don't know what it's just like a law thing. We just like to do that. So yes, that's exactly right. It's a series of meetings called IEP meetings where we create the IEP.
Okay, so what is the IEP process?
Okay, so there is a formal meeting. And by formal, I mean that parents get a notice about it and they get to respond. So it's not just, hey, we're in the parking lot together, but it's parents together with school and district staff. So it has to happen within a fairly short time frame of when a child is found eligible for special education. The thing is that meetings with all these officials can be really intimidating. You won't know everybody, and there'll be all sorts of crazy words like this IEP. So parents should know that they can bring anyone that they want with them to this meeting. Another parent, a friend, an advocate, whoever a parent thinks can help and support them. And by the way, if you need an interpreter because you speak a language other than English, or your first language is not English, you're just not comfortable speaking in English, if you let the school know, they are required to provide you with an interpreter. So at this meeting, and sometimes it's more than one meeting, the whole group discusses your child, the evaluation data, the tests that we talked about in the last Facebook Live, and they develop this plan. The parent has to approve the plan the first time before it starts, and the plan gets reviewed at least once a year. So it's not, it's a big deal because you're making a decision about a whole school year, but it's not forever.
And is the meeting going to be in person?
Oh my goodness. If it had to be in person, this last couple of years would have been just a nightmare. But with all this great technology, we can absolutely meet on the computer. Here's the thing. It's not a short meeting. Sometimes these meetings can take several hours. So you have to be prepared. And if the school is going to be sharing documents, which in the first meeting they usually do, you want to ask them to send them to you, or can you pick them up ahead of time so you can see them at the same time. And sometimes the school will share something that is called an IEP before the meeting. And it's important to know that that's a draft. It's It's not final, and a final IEP cannot be written ahead of time without a parent's input. That's really important to understand because, when you're handed a piece of paper, you think, okay, well, this is done. Why am I even here? Well, sometimes it just helps them organize their thoughts.
Right. Okay. And what's the parent's role at the IEP meeting?
The IEP team really isn't a team without a parent. A parent is really important. So the role of the parent at this meeting is to share information, to ask questions, to offer suggestions, and to keep the team's focus on the big picture on your child's long-term needs, and to speak up on the child's behalf. The parent is the whole reason the parent is part of the IEP team meeting is that they know the child the best. And whether problems take place only at school or only at home, or things are different at school and different at home. But it still can be really intimidating to go to these meetings because there's lots of terms and you won't understand everything that's said. And that's why it can really help to have somebody with you. I mean, it's just a new thing, right? And it takes time to learn it. Also, and this is important to think about, it can be really hard to listen to people talk about your child. It can be really hard to listen to negative things about your child. And so it's important to remember that this is a discussion that's supposed to lay out the problems in order to figure out how to best help your child. And one of the things that can help you get ready for these meetings is to contact the Parent Advocacy Center. There's one in every state. We're going to give you a link to those, and they can help you understand the language and just sort of get used to what the process might be like, and that will make it a little easier.
Is it fair to say that the individual education plan is what services and supports are needed so that your disabled child gets an adequate education?
That's a pretty good overview. Of course, there are a lot more specifics. And do you want to know about that?
I do.
Okay. So, first of all, you can look on the internet and find IEPs, but it's important to know that an IEP is going to look different depending on where your kid goes to school. It's going to be different for districts. It's going to be different across states. And so there's not like a standard form. However, the law gives us 8 specific things that have to be included. So those are, and they're kind of long and confusing. So first, your child's present levels of academic achievement. So what can they do? And functional performance. So for example, what level does your child read at? Can the child move around by him or herself? So very practical. What level are they performing at now? The second is how the school's going to measure your child's progress. So how are we going to know when we've succeeded? Third is the education related services and supports that will be provided to your child. So that's pretty much your summary. Fourth, and I don't want to go into too much depth here, but it's very important that a child be educated with non-disabled children to the extent possible. And so the IEP has to talk about that. The fifth thing is it has to talk about any changes to the state test that will be made for your child. And that can be simple, like a teacher can read the directions, or it can be really complicated, like your child's going to take a different test entirely. It has to have specific dates and amounts and types of services and where they're going to take place. It's going to have to say how the school's going to let you know how your child is progressing. And that is really important for a parent. And that is really how you stay on top of what's going on. And then the last thing is really for older kids. And older is different in every state, but it's transition goals and services for like college and careers. And there are certain rights that you will transfer to your child when they turn 18. So that's a lot to worry about.
It's a lot. It's a lot of information that goes in there. So what's the most important takeaway from this presentation?
Oh my gosh. So for a parent that's brand new to this process, I'd say pay the most attention to the first 3 things. The present levels of performance, because you want to agree, right? if you think your child isn't reading at all, and for example, a school says your child's reading at the second grade level, well, something's going on there that's not quite connecting. So you want to get that right because you want to start at the right level in order to make progress. And the second thing I would pay attention to is how they're going to measure that progress. So if, for example, your child is reading on a second grade level and they say, well, in a year, they're going to read on the second grade and 1 month level, that doesn't seem like very much. So you might say, well, that's not a good enough goal. And then the third thing is, well, what are they really going to do? What is the education? What are the services? What are the supports? And are they really going to help get your child to success? So here's some questions that you might ask as a parent. And again, this is all going to, you can watch this video a million times if you want, and we'll post a transcript too. So first, are the present levels of performance specific? So it's not enough to just say, Junior is a nice child. You want to say Junior's strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what helps them learn, what gets in the way. And you really want to get this right because it's the foundation of everything. You want to ask, are the goals positive? And do they describe skills that could be seen and measured? Because you want to know what to look for at home. You don't want to just wait for a test to tell you. And things like, well, the child can read 25 sight words, and by the end of the year, they'll read 100 sight words. You can see that. So who's going to achieve what, in what manner, where, and by when? And finally, what education and services is the school going to put in place to help your child meet the goals that are in this IEP? Do you, as a parent, think these things will help? And if not, what would help more? Again, you as a parent, you're the one who really knows your child. And that's why you're at this table, to try to say, hey, you need to think about this other thing that I know and you don't.
And I just want to emphasize what Cheryl said, like, you need to make sure, the school's going to come with just a form document and probably something that they give to multiple kids. You need to make sure that that document is specific for your child, that it has your child's present levels. It has, you don't want it to be a cookie cutter document. You want it to be very specific to your child.
You're exactly right. That's why it's called an individualized education plan. But you're right, schools get busy. They've got lots of kids, and you have one at this meeting. And so you're the one who gets to go, this doesn't sound like my child. This is not going to help. I think my child needs this other thing.
Right. So what if you have the IEP meeting, the services are put in place, but your child's just not making any progress? What do you do then?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And here's the thing. They're going to give you a document, and it's called something like procedural safeguards or whatever. It's really hard to read and understand. But one thing that's in it that you need to know is that you as a parent can ask for an IEP meeting anytime. So if you get a couple of progress reports that show no progress, you should ask the school. And by ask, I mean you should give them a note with a date in writing for another meeting. And so use your progress reports. Make sure when you look at the IEP that you see when you can expect progress reports. It could be every 9 weeks. It could be twice a year. If you think they need to be more often, you can ask for more often. So really, this document is for you to be able to hold the school accountable. And so it's really important to read it and understand it. And if you don't understand it, to get someone to sit down with you and read through it with you, because, it's your kid's avenue to get help that they need.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Cheryl. We know this was a lot of information, but again, you can watch it anytime. And the link for the parent resources is going to be in the chat. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Steph.